let's see, what are the long-term effects of the COVID-19 vaccine? Okay, so this is another question that I feel is, is asked a lot, and there's not a lot of great answers unless you're someone who's really familiar with vaccines. So in general, in the grand scheme of things, the world has eyeballs on all of the vaccines, right? We still don't have all the data on long-term effects because vaccines have only been around for like a year. But we do have a lot of history and studies from every other vaccine in the entire world. And what we know is that if a vaccine has a long-term effect, the long-term effect will be present within 6 months after, or 6 months, within 6 weeks after a vaccine is given. So if, as you heard earlier with the EUA, the FDA requires 2 months of safety data. That is because they're looking at these long-term effects within that 8-week period. And then in general, with any long-term effects for any vaccine, they would be present within 6 weeks. So some examples from history were a polio vaccine. Anybody that got the rare polio infection from the vaccine, it occurred within 4 to 6 weeks. 1976 swine flu, GBS, Guillain-Barré syndrome was seen within 6 to 8 weeks of that vaccine, and then rotavirus, rare intussusception was found for the rotavirus vaccine within 8 weeks. So if it doesn't happen within 8 weeks, it is safe to say that as of right now, there's no long-term effects that we know of, and it's still safe to give the vaccine. And again, the whole world is looking at this data, and with over billions of doses being given, if there was any crazy situation, such as things I've heard, spike proteins accumulating in the reproductive organs or causing clots everywhere in the body, if it was seen, the world would address it, healthcare workers would address it. Me in the ICU, where I work in a high vaccinated community, would see these patients coming in, dropping like flies into the hospital, and we're not seeing that. So that's another reason to support that. We don't see any of these crazy long-term effects, and we don't expect it because these vaccines live in our bodies for an extremely short period of time. So mRNA only lasts about, I want to say 72 hours, and then it's broken down because it's so fragile. And the spike proteins usually last, again, another 48 hours to weeks, depending on your immune system. And that is because your immune system learns how to eat this spike protein, and then it gobbles up all the spike protein in your body. And then you don't have any more side effects from the vaccine. So yeah, as far as long-term effects, one thing you can say out in the field is that this is being watched very closely. And based on historical data from the CDC, there has not, based on the CDC, there hasn't been any data to show that there are any long-term effects expected, because if there was a long-term effect, it would have happened within the studies in 2 months, and we're not seeing that.